It is 7 p.m. South African time CAT, 10 a.m. MST, and of course 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Welcome back. I am Dr. Unati Makiwane, your host. Welcome to Dr. M Health Corner Talk Show. If you are new to our show, this is a weekly show. We used to actually stream live here on Fridays, but we have moved it to Saturday. So thank you so much. I see people are coming on. Welcome, welcome. And I thought starting or kicking off this year would be great to bring one of my favorite people here in Nhlanhla. You know Nhlanhla, you've seen her a few times here on our studio here. And of course, we're gonna have another guest joining us there. He'll be here shortly. I think he's just running behind time. Penuel. He goes by God Penuel. He's gonna explain to you guys why he's called God Penuel. Welcome, Nhlanhla. Nhlanhla is actually a frequent flyer here. I'll say that. Nhlanhla is a counseling psychologist. She's a public speaker. She's a motivational speaker. She's just an amazing human. And you can see behind her, she's actually on holidays. I'm jealous that in South Africa it's warm and I'm freezing here.
Yep.
How are you?
Very beautiful day in Cape Town. It's very hot at the beach, and it's wonderful. Hey,
right.
And we're grateful to have made it to 2022. Eh?
I know, with resilience.
Who would have thought? Who would have thought from when we started? I mean, nothing was. We could not expect anything.
No, we couldn't. Des.
Hey, it's coming in.
Hello, how are you?
Very good evening from Johannesburg. I'd just like to apologize. I was rushing from an appointment, so I'm a bit late, but I hope I'll still be relevant somehow. But thank you very much.
Yes. Don't worry, we just started actually. Welcome. I just want to introduce you, and of course, you're gonna have to tell and share with our audience why you call God Penuel. Penuel, I actually bumped into his profile, guys, on Facebook, and he has quite an interesting. I could relate to a lot of things he actually teaches. It's actually about resilience, which is so relevant about our topic here today. Mute yourself. I can't hear. Thank you so much. So basically, I went ahead. You know, Google is beautiful. He didn't tell me much about himself other than that he's a business coach, he's a parent, he's a parenting advisor. His background is economics. He's got a degree and basically honors in economics. He's big with financial empowerment. I love that about him. And I think it's very important for us, young people, and also in general, and also empower kids. He's big with children not being spoiled. He's going to share with us how to bring that about into practical terms. Penuel, welcome, Buti. Nice to meet you.
Thank you very much, Doc. Thank you very much. I'm quite honored to be on the platform. I've seen some of the work that you're doing. I think it's very exemplary. I'm a huge fan of people that decide to put their hands up to lead. We always speak about a leadership vacuum, especially amongst Black people, especially across the world. And I think it's very beautiful what you're doing. And I'm, again, honored to be put on your platform, and I look forward to engaging with yourself and everyone else that you have access to on this platform.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Puti. Guys, let's talk about resilience. Nhlanhla, you already mentioned how terrible 2020 was, you know, and of course, it didn't start in 2020, guys. 2020 and 2019, we were pulled upside down by COVID-19. It shook us and changed the world's economy. It changed the world's mental health. You know, it's not different in this side of the world. I saw it. I was in Johannesburg. I was also just in South Africa in December, you know, but interestingly, I don't know if I would say that side, you guys are resilient. I couldn't see traces of COVID. Yes, people were respectful, wearing masks. What are you guys doing differently? Here, we are living in anxiety. This side of the world, we are all scared about COVID. And of course, we're doing what we need to do. We are vaccinated more than you are that side. But I could sense that you guys are pulling through. What are you doing differently, guys? You can kick off. Nhlanhla, you can kick off. Penuel, why are you resilient compared to this side of the world?
But you gotta love South Africa, and you've gotta love our people, because I mean, I think that's the only way we pull through difficult times and situations, because we don't I don't know whether it's a good thing or a bad thing coming from a psychologist, but some Black people don't recognize anxiety. It's like we know, we see you, but look, we're not coming as easy. Like, you know what? So I think what has happened is there were too many losses. It hit very hard. It was too difficult to comprehend. It was something that nobody has ever thought it will happen. We still are not understanding what COVID is all about, especially with all the new strains and everything. But I think it got to a point where people were like, you know what? When you still are given a chance to live, just do it. And I think that's why, I think in general also, because you will see, even grieving yet is not the same as your typical 5 steps grieving process that you will go through, or a psychologist will expect from people to go through. People they first, and it's what people will say it's denial, but what happens is we jump straight through to acceptance. And that's what I figure. People just accept to go to, you know what, we're screwed. So how do we survive? Let's see to it. Because otherwise, if we look at the situations that we go under, none of most of the people, and under the struggles that people go through, if they didn't adopt this survival mode, we'll not be where we are today. Because even us, what got us to be in these platforms were the fact that because of when you're struggling, you were told to toughen up, make it work, and be where we are. And I think that's the same principle that we're using as well now.
It's interesting. We're going to unpack that, Sissy, because I want to see how is it helping us to survive, because there is good and bad in that. And we saw how COVID-19 pulled Black people specifically to recognize their mental health struggles. We saw that. Penuel, tell me, in the work you do, you get a lot of pushback when you talk about don't raise kids to be spoiled. I want you to kick off from that, because a lot of times, Tata mentioned that we grow up asked to be toughened up, go face the world. And then unfortunately, somehow, when you get to a place of comfort, you work hard. And us in South Africa specifically, we are told, go get your education to be successful. But I know you talk a lot about how you have your education, but you have nothing to show. And then there's a lot of, okay, if you are lucky enough, you are fortunate, you worked hard, you tend to spoil your kids sometimes if you're not careful. How do we still raise resilient children in the 21st century, in the midst of plenty? Because there are people who are fortunate, who are blessed, but they find themselves giving everything and even overdoing it.
Thank you very much, Doc. I'd just like to send greetings to Nhlanhla. I'm quite honored to be on this platform with her, and I'm enjoying listening to her as well. Before I answer your question, I just want to add on to your previous question about, I think the last stats I saw said that only 6% of Africans have actually vaccinated against COVID-19. I think we're still very much a literal people as Africans. What that means to me is that if the symptoms are not as heavy as maybe tuberculosis, maybe people are having diarrhea or some kind of skin thing that you can see, and if people are not dying as rapidly as the news are stating, I think that's one of the reasons Africans have not really bought in to COVID mania as much as the rest of the Western world. The Western world, because it's sophisticated and understands science and those things, when the scientists speak about some of the things that are happening to your body, they take it seriously. Africans are like, well, my throat is fine, I don't have a headache, you're telling me I have COVID, but I'm fine. So life goes on, especially because we're very much a survivalist people. So especially if you need to go out and hustle and you need to go out and work, it doesn't really make sense to be on high alert when, for the most part, statistically, most people around you might be getting COVID positive, but they're not getting sick. Yes. The number is so few. And we've seen people die from AIDS. We've seen what AIDS does to the body, for example. We've seen what cancer does to the body. So we're saying we're still waiting for that AIDS cancer type impact to happen. regarding COVID. And until Africans see it, they probably won't take it that seriously. On the second part that you're asking, I did make a video, as you said. I put it on my YouTube channel. I put it on my Facebook page, Penuel the Black Pen. And I think it's the most watched video I've made personally. It's probably going for about 600,000 views. It's not crazy in the bigger world, but in my little world, it actually means a lot. Yes. And I appreciate it. And more importantly, I appreciate the fact that it trended, I believe, for the right reasons. It's parents realizing that this thing of kids sitting on the couch every day playing video games, eating junk food, gaining weight, is not going to build strong, great adults. And we're seeing it even now, even though I'd like to think I'm the next generation after the parents that fought during the struggle. And then our kids now become the second or third generation after that. We're already seeing it in our generation where our parents struggled, where a boy like Andile Mpisane, who's the son of a businesswoman, Umam Kize, Ushonim Kize, going to parties, getting drunk, buying bottles. We see some of our big celebrities, Casper Nyovest, Bonang, they're pushing this lifestyle thing. It's beautiful. It's what people aspire to, But the reality on the ground is that people don't have money. People are in heavy debt. People are depressed. You touched on mental health, which I think you're going to go into later. And what we're realizing is our parents who claim to have grown up in struggle seem to be stronger, seem to be more resilient, seem to be able to overcome hurdles much better than us and our children. And maybe it's time we start looking back into, maybe we need some of that hardness to come back. Emphasize the chores, emphasize exercise, emphasize doing the hard things. I'm a huge fan of the Afrikaans nation in South Africa, as much as they have a negative history because of apartheid. But if you look at how they raise their kids on rugby, on going to the farm, it strengthens them, and it allows them to attack life and see life easier because they are so strong. Whereas on the other hand, our children are going to find life very difficult. Lots of anxiety, lots of depression. A lot of kids are going to kill themselves just because they failed matric, just because they didn't get the car, just because they didn't get the job. And I think if we want to build a strong country of the future, we need to go back to some of these things that we've been trying so hard to run away from. I want my kids to live a great life, not like me, not realizing that your struggle is what built the character that allows you to thrive today. Thank you, Doc.
You guys are just amazing. You know what? It's interesting that you touched on, I don't want my kids to struggle. And yet the reference is you also were raised hard, not necessarily without love. And there's this notion of thinking that when kids are raised with all these chores, I mean, you look at the studies. I was looking one time at the study in Stanford. This professor was talking about we have become a generation, us, like I would assume that we are more or less the same age group. We have become these helicopter parents. We don't want our kids to hurt. We're thinking about what is my son going to be doing in university. We have even dreamt of, like we're dreaming through our kids, whatever failed in our lives, we're already thinking they're going to be a doctor, be a lawyer. We have shut down from other things that could bring success to our kids. We don't want our kids to fail. You touched on chores. What happened to chores? Kids today, I sometimes laugh at my son coming home and say, guys, you know that, when I look at my friends, I'm the only one who does all A, B, C, D. I'm like, you know what? We don't do this reference thing. Don't bring me all these references about how your friends do things. I don't care how their parents decide to do their thing. They're doing their thing. But Nhlanhla, tell me, we talked about the resilience and how we decide to push through. What is the percentage of Black people coming to you with, Nhlanhla, I'm struggling with depression? You said in the beginning that people don't even recognize anxiety. This pushing through, how do we survive? Do they come for help? Do they come for, resilience tools to you guys?
But look, I think what's important to iron out here is who we're speaking to. We have a target market that we're speaking to. We have a certain class that we're speaking to. If we speak to Black people, then we would speak a different language than we're speaking now, because we're talking about chores. in the rurals, what we call chores is a lifestyle. You have to wash the dishes. You have to go and fetch wood to make a fire. You have to fetch water so you can drink. So that is your necessity. That is your basic need to living. And so our kids, then we call it chores, and you have a choice to do a chore. In the rurals, you don't have that choice. And it's the same thing that goes with having a choice to recognize mental health or not. You know, when you're in the rural, you do not have a choice but to survive. We have a choice because we have resources, we have knowledge, we have access to such things. With them, to have to just, I mean, now with all the floods and the rain, we've been exposed to how people cannot just move from one area to another because of the flooding, because of the river, because of the transport, because of the money that is not there. Then you eventually get to the hospital, then they tell you must do a COVID test, and only after you've got the results, you will get to be treated. And most people get to hospital with no COVID, but because we have to test and sleep on the benches waiting for the COVID test with 6 other people who are COVID positive, then you wonder why your granny went to hospital just with a hypertension, and then they tell you she died of COVID because she had to sleep 2 days, 2 full days, waiting for COVID results, sitting in the same room with everyone else who's positive or not positive. We have an advantage of going to a private place. We test for COVID, we go home and we wait for a call that tells you, no, you are positive, no, you are not. We have an option to isolate, where you cannot isolate, where you are living in a 2-bedroom house with 15 other people. So that there's things of an option of survival, and there's the things of I think now is, I think what this has happened now is when we start seeing how privileged we are. We speak of schools that close because 1 child or 2 kids had COVID and they have to close. They have sanitizers, they have masks, they can change, you know, some come to school. We're talking about schools where there's 100 kids in 1 class. And I've experienced that with my own eyes, 100 kids in 1 class with no place to sit, with no. So even if you were to divide those classes, how many times would we have to divide them for them to get to a point of where our kids only go to school when there's only 20 or 10 or 15? So I think sometimes I struggle to conversate as a Black person, because I tend to I feel guilty. I feel guilty to be me, because I cannot sit here and say Black people do not recognize depression and they don't come to us for mental health, because they have decided, and I would promote that, to say, let's build a resilience, let's build this notion of saying, be strong, be positive, you know, don't look at the negative. Because if we were to say, look at it, they will die. I mean, I know Penuel was just saying that maybe because the symptoms are not so visible, that is why we're not reacting to it. I know, I think maybe with the exposure that I've had, how many households have closed down because the mother and the father have died out of COVID, and it's just kids that are left. How many children headed homes now out of COVID? Those children do not have a choice but to survive. And what we do, which some people would say it's wrong, some will say it's right, at this point I don't know what to say, is when we then go on social media, we bring this brave face and we laugh at things that people, that privileged people say it's taboo. Why laugh at this? It's not a laughing matter. But I laugh because laughing gives me something to look forward to. Not because it's a laughing matter, but because if I don't laugh now, if I don't look at this as something that is funny, I'm going to go home hungry, because I have 2 degrees, there's no jobs. My aunt that is still alive has no job. So then what? What are we going to do? So we start getting into the potholes and play as if we're swimming, as if it's nice. It's not nice. We're just saying this is us. And it's very unfortunate.
You know what? I always compare this side of the world and in South Africa or in Africa. There's something amazing about this collective. You mentioned that you have to survive, because if you don't, I look at Facebook. And one time, actually, when I started my shows, just to give you a background, 3 years ago, I was telling my sister, I said, you know what I'm bringing? I think I'm bringing amazing content. I'm talking about disease prevention. I'm talking about mental health. And my sister, who is an advocate, she said, can I tell you something? I come and watch your program because I love you. You're my sister. And I know that you say amazing stuff. But I'll tell you, I'll be a mouthpiece of how South Africans feel. When they come on Facebook, they want to laugh. They've had it enough. Some of them, they don't have jobs. You've seen it before you left for Canada. People are working at Pick and Pay. These people have degrees. But how else can they find joy? They come on Facebook. So you telling them to go and check for hypertension. You know that this hypertension is due to stress because of unemployment. So why come on your page and you remind me of this pain I go through every day? That gave me another perspective. Truly, you keep doing what you're doing, and I'm grateful that with time people started listening. But again, I think somehow, as much as we talk about, yes, it's a struggle, but there's power in this Ubuntu. Can you guys take off from that? The Ubuntu concept, I heard actually, Penuel, you talk about Ubuntu in one of your topics. This Ubuntu, do you think that it has helped that side of the world to pull through, to be resilient? Because I find here, culture in the Western world is very individualistic. You look at, if your granny here is aging, the first thing her kids will do, they'll place her in a nursing home. I mean, I'm starting to see it in our culture too, because people are working away. They're finding jobs in Johannesburg and Durban. But this Ubuntu, do you think that it has protected our continent to be resilient in the midst of this pain that people go through?
I've got my own issues with the concept of Ubuntu, especially in the capitalist world, unfortunately, because I do believe Ubuntu is one of the major reasons why African people were colonized. Very friendly, accommodating of foreigners at a time. And because we were hurt in the past, I think we've become so aggressive to foreigners now. I think there are still elements of Ubuntu, but I don't think they are chosen. Everywhere we look, social media, television, it is this agenda of individualism. I want to be the richest. I want to be the guy with the car. I want to be the person in the family who's rich. So you find that Ubuntu remains for the people that are poor and have no choice but to rely on each other. Not necessarily because they think it's a great value that they have and that they want to promote and push, but because it's literally all they have. So it could have helped, number one, but number two, I still feel very much, especially with COVID, that a lot of people, especially in townships and in squatter camps, in their opinion, they've got more pressing issues. Getting food, making a bit of money, worrying about things like masks and getting vaccines literally becomes something that they get forced to do. If, for example, the state says before you get your grant, you have to get a vaccine, that's the only reason they'll get the vaccine. If they say the only way you can get into the shop to buy bread is to wear a mask, they'll do it just for that. Otherwise, they don't want to do it. And then in terms of grieving, in terms of suffering, I think just as a people, we've always been about Ubuntu in that aspect. We respect death very much, and where we can, we always do try to help. So something like COVID, something like AIDS, something like some type of disease that's befallen a family, I think we still do have those aspects that have helped comfort us. And if you look at even the culture of the fact that we still sing in church, we sing in funerals, that becomes certain ways that we comfort each other. And just to touch on what you guys were mentioning before about laughing on social media, it's very much a coping mechanism. A big reason Black people to this day don't go to social workers, therapists, and the like as a first point of call. We don't have money as a people. We haven't been socialized to understand that there are professionals that deal with these things. So we either escape through comedy, through alcohol, through drugs. And then for those who do let's call it seek counseling. It's either speaking to friends, family members, your pastor, or even at the tavern where you're drinking. That's where you speak to people about your problems. You'll hear stories about guys crying at the tavern, talking about how his wife did whatever. Clearly, that's where it's their outlet. But they may not be speaking to a professional, and some of the advice they may be getting, go home and smack that woman. She's acting up because she's not respecting you. You must hit her, put her in your place. That's not the type of advice that's going to build us. So we do have a lot of problems. A lot of it for me are structural. We have had a way of living that has been forced onto our people that is not natural to our people. And because it functions on money, and intentionally our people are not giving money, the system that has been forced onto us oppresses us more than it's supposed to help us evolve and progress as a nation, or as a people at least. Thank you.
Yes. Wow. How do we move forward, you guys? Now we have all these amazing forums that I see in Africa. There's so much happening in the continent. I see young people. Like I'm so impressed, seriously, to hear people like yourself, Penuel, building and so influential in that space, because we have gotten used to humor, but running away from ourselves. I was actually surprised that South Africa is one of the highest in Africa, is one of the highest consuming alcohol country. Like you said, people, they escape. So it's not like totally people, this collective of sharing our pain, which is fantastic. It's part of coping, but there's also other unhealthy ways. South Africa consumes alcohol and it's made fun of. People, they do it, it's fun, and it's, and also our rituals, like, umgidi, there's so many of that, weddings, people, this is where they find these things free. But then people are drowning. And also now we're starting to see high stats of suicides, more especially in black men. There's a lot of that. The gender-based violence, Nhlanhla, we've talked about that previously here last year. So how do we move forward? How do we empower young people right now? Because these are the leaders of the country. These are the leaders of tomorrow. How do we move forward? What do we do to change the mindset? How do we do that to help people? And I know that it has so many layers, guys. There's so much money required, but how do we move forward? How do we empower people? How do you tell a person to be resilient if he has a spouse that beats her up every day and she has to wake up the next day?
So look, maybe tapping back into the issue of Ubuntu and being so we're talking about being a collective or individualistic. For me, I always say, you would see, even from the way how I work as a psychologist, because I'm a Black woman, because I understand our background, and because my target market is the people that is my people. And that's the entire reason why I became a psychologist, is because I felt I was not understood from a collective perspective. I was understood from an individualistic when I went and sought help from a psychologist at some point. And for me, that didn't work. So what I'm trying to, and I always emphasize, is the fact that speaking to one person that comes into your rooms, trying to resolve their issues, which are systemic, is not going to help us. So if you want to see change in this country, as the one person that can afford to come and see me for my services, and the one person that can afford to buy their data to watch us and watch this conversation, that person should be empowered enough to go and empower other people. And that's my stance, and I stand with it. And I would say, over and over again, I would question the person that wants to fight me on that one, because I've seen more times where even parents will send kids to you and say, see, to my child, he's suicidal, he's that. What has made him that is his background, most cases. And also, if you then work with the son of yours that is suicidal without looking at the source of where this is coming, and without looking at the impact of what he's going through and how it has impacted the whole family and sometimes the whole society, because how it extends to a society is because when I was going through problems, my mom went to church and she stood up and said, my child is having issues at work and there's issues going, please, Bazalwane, pray with me. Those bazalwane went into their own societal spaces with their own prayer groups and said, Umntwana kaMahadebe is going through such and such. Bafazi, help me pray with. So this becomes now, remember, it's just me that is going through something that let's say I'm suicidal or whatever, or I'm having an abusive boss or husband or whatever. My mom spoke to the church spoke to, so then it becomes a societal problem. If I then sit with the one person, all these other people that are impacted now with this story are not getting help. So what I then do is whatever platform that I find, I always try and balance it in a sense that it's not just social media where certain people can have access, but go to the local radio stations, go to the vernac radio stations where you're going to speak in the language that people understand and say, if umntwana wakho enza kanje kanje, it's not because they have now been soft, because we have moved. And I know I say that when it's my children, I know when I'm being professional, but when it's my children, when we start saying, labantwana bama conflicts, they're very soft. But we don't actually look at how did they get to that. And oftentimes as parents, we have moved them towards that. By when we move towards the suburbs and we move towards the employment and affordability, we start taking those kids away from other people, and we've made them these individual people that don't have a support structure. Because Tina, even if you were born alone, you had 16 other siblings, which you don't. Today, somebody can ask who to in the family. You don't know, because they are not even your biological sisters. And at no point would you ask your parent, Uguti Lona yenuzalo bani. So in that sense, you always had a support structure, because we had these siblings, we had the aunts, we had the moms, and in actual fact, we were not even. I was never allowed to call my umamncane or udabao or whatever. Umama was umama, ubaba was ubaba, and so you never felt, if you didn't have parents, you don't have parents. So I think what I'm trying to drive here is to say, being a collective is the only thing that's going to get us out of this. Being a collective is the only thing. Sometimes I take a taxi long distance to wherever, to Joburg, whatever. When I'm in the taxi, I'm not going to shut my mouth and read a book and be no, I'm in the taxi and I'm listening to the story, and the lady's talking about, hey, how she's suffering. I jump in. When I jump in, I make it educational. I make it impactful for everyone in the taxi, to a point that I will even shout to the taxi driver and say, hey, when up with the because of abafazi, hey, phela, I know them. I know what I'm doing, and I am intentional about what I'm doing. So I think what I'm trying to say is, let's be intentional about what we're doing, and let's do it to those that cannot afford us, that do not have access to this, that do not have the luxury of saying I'm soft or I'm weak, and dying is the only option.
Wow, that's beautiful. That's beautiful, Nyani, truly, because we cannot sit around and just speak to this community. So each opportunity we get. Thank you so much. I see people are on still enjoying our conversation here. Penuel, do you want to say something good? How do we move from here? How do we toughen up?
I had a similar response to Nhlanhla, and I think essentially what she was trying to say, which is what I wanted to say, is those of us who believe we have solutions need to get louder. We need to get on all the platforms we can get on and just get louder. Yes, we're fighting against a huge noise on the other side of distraction, of chasing certain things that are not building people, of even making people doubt themselves and have low self-esteem because they feel like, maybe I'm not that pretty, I'm not light-skinned, I don't have that nice bum, I don't have that nice car. We need to get louder, and in getting louder, a lot of leadership starts at home. Obviously, it starts with yourself, but also in the home. You need to begin monitoring what your children are consuming and switch. It's difficult. It's very difficult. But if you look at the habits of the most successful individuals and the most successful groups, it starts in small things like, which radio stations do they listen to? Which TV programs do they watch? What books are allowed in their homes? Are they exercising as a family? Do they sit together as a family and talk? Do they have a culture of speaking, not at each other, but to each other to understand each other? Utoli spoke about going to church. Do you have a healthy space where you can go and offload, and where there are like-minded people who share your values and who will help you as well? Because you do more of that and you block off more of the rubbish stuff, especially for your kids, you will see those habits yielding fruit. And by the time you look up, your kids are not only strong and powerful, but to what Utoli is saying, your children are now counseling other children. Your children are now an inspiration to other children that, oh my gosh, I want to have a nice body like you. I want to be healthy like you. How do you get good skin? What products are you using? No, I'm eating fruit and vegetables and I'm drinking water. You know, why are you and your parents so great? Oh, it's because we have no cell phone day where we have to speak to each other. We do reading to each other every evening, for example. So one of the cool things we can do, because we live in that type of world, is look at some of the communities that are doing well mentally, financially, etc. Whether it's Indian Muslims, it could be the Chinese, and try and emulate some of their behaviors. Who are they buying their goods from? What are they eating? What books are their kids reading? What are they consuming? What do they watch? Do they watch people twerking, or are they watching educational programs? Have people actually gone through, let's say you have something like cable TV bouquets. Have you seen what channels are out there to teach about history, to teach about animals, to teach you even about healthcare, for example? It's not nice, it's boring. Compared to what's out there that's flashy, it's very boring. But those habits over time, when you're not reading a book, when you're not engaging educational content, you miss it, which means you have become a person of value, a person of power. And where you can find like-minded people, that's where we move, as Utoli Nhlanhla said, from individual to collective. And once your collective is powerful, you guys become the people to go to, and everyone will aspire to you. And you hopefully will become a light for everyone else to create a better, stronger world.
Oh, I love you guys. You're just amazing. Thank you so much. Just for our viewers to also, just to add to these amazing speakers, let us not, I know we come from a background of repressing and suppressing. These are hard times. People lost jobs, people lost relationships, people lost, family members. You heard the speakers talk about how much people lost. There's homes that are closed, there's no parents, and that could actually bring about depressive symptoms. I just want to talk a little bit more about the symptoms that you need to actually look into. And if you have, please seek help. There's Toli Nhlanhla out there, there's so many other psychologists. And of course, fortunately, the governments have these free, toll-free numbers to talk to someone, or you could go to your clinic, or you could go to your doctor, you could go to your social worker, to your psychologist. If you are struggling, you've noticed that for 2 weeks, you've noticed that you have lost interest in the things you used to enjoy. You used to enjoy going to chat with your friends, or you loved loud. Right now, most of in the continent in Africa, it's warm, but you no longer enjoy being out there. You are always indoors. You're not even enjoying that show you used to enjoy. Your appetite, you're either eating less or eating more. You're sleeping a lot more. Even your friends, your family, they notice that you are isolating yourself. Even your thoughts, you've noticed that you have negative thoughts. There's this chatterbox in your head telling you all these things, that you're not good enough, you are not pretty, you're not handsome, you're not good enough. You have started having imposter syndrome. Even at work, the work you do, you're not confident anymore. You're just feeling so low. Your mood is subdued. Sometimes you even have suicidal thoughts. You feel that you don't want to be here. You even have a plan. These could be actually symptoms of depression. And these symptoms could take 2 weeks or longer. Please seek help. Don't be alone. We want you here. There's a reason you are here. There's a purpose. You need to find your purpose. Each one of us has a gift. There was actually a book I was reading here about how, as parents, we need to empower. You want to touch on that, actually, Nhlanhla? You want to touch on how parents can empower kids. There's this notion of thinking that your child can only be academic, because I honestly believe that all of us are gifted. Can we empower parents here? It's okay for your child to be probably good in sports, be good in an instrument. I think we need to find ways where we could actually empower and be okay with a gift your child is gifted with, and empower and embrace that, because that would actually help that competence and also that confidence. Because a lot of times we think that our kids should be, we don't deal with what we have in front of us. And there's this comparison parents tend to have. If you have 2 or 3 kids, you start comparing your kids. And sometimes people, they don't even think about it. It just happens. Do you guys want to empower parents here? How do you still help those kids to shine in the midst of the 3, 4, 5 kids you have in the house, while empowering and embracing each one's gift?
So, as you know, I'm a spiritual being, and that means I know we're all of spirit. When we are born with our own calling, and whatever we do, what we touch, needs to leave an impression. It needs to change somebody's life. At some point, I was a waitress. When I was a waitress, I spoke to people, and when I see them today, you need to be memorable. You need to say something as you would think is nothing, as, here's your drink. I hope you enjoy it. And that person thinks, wow, it's just a drink, it's just Coke. But from that, you start listening to the response and you respond. At some point, I worked at a hotel where you would see a couple coming in and you would see one is happy, one is not happy. It will be a thing of, I hope you enjoy your holiday, and whatever is in your mind clears off. And that is something that gives someone to think about. I think if I can just list everything that I've done, and I always say, so what I do now is, when I'm in the restaurant, I then make sure that I give eye contact to the waitress and I say, you know what, I've been here. And you might look at it as being something small, but it's not small. So it's from that. It's from me standing up to a buffet, the queue, and I'm ordering my breakfast. And I know when I say sunny side up, and the chef doesn't, and is panicking because they've actually flipped it. And they say, sorry, ma'am, I understand, because a simple thing as making a sunny side egg could make a client flip out of and swear to you and say a lot of things. It is in that conversation I will say to the chef, I know exactly what you're talking about. Don't worry, I'll have it like that. Oh, don't you worry, I've been there. That day will change that person. We actually feel like, oh, actually, I'm not a useless whatever that my boss was calling me yesterday. Somebody else has been here, and this person is something else today. So it's just those things where, as a parent, you look at your background, where you come from and where you are today, and the expectations that you have for your child, and start saying, my son, I've been there. I know how hard you've worked. I know, because I was raised by a vendor who was selling inyama phakathi, for instance, and people used to laugh at them. And now I managed to get you to school. So you do what you can. And my husband, as we were driving, because we decided to take a drive from Durban to Cape Town so we can just talk. And that's also something that I would encourage parents to do, because you are stuck. And I kept saying, you guys are stuck with us for 20 hours. There's no going to your room. There's no going to your gadgets. And when the batteries were finished, they were finished. There's nowhere else to go. We need to talk. And we were saying how the difference between me and my husband is, my motto is, your best is good enough. If you give me your best is good enough. I don't care if your best is an E. You have given it your best. And that's what I want to emphasize to parents, to say, if you have given it your best to look for a job, if you haven't found the job, you have done your part. You have looked for this job. If you have given it your best to find or to try and create a best life for this family, the fact that other kids are building homes for their parents and you haven't built your parents a home, you have actually brought bread, and that bread is your best, and it's good enough. We are going to bed with something in our tummy because you've bought a 50 kg of mealie meal. They've built a home. It does not matter. So I want to emphasize to the parents, do not compare. You accept what you have been given. I want to emphasize to the kids now, I have been dealing with a lot of suicidal cases with university students now, where our beautiful children are killing themselves because one, they are petrified, they are scared of us because we've been saying, you have to get it, you have to pass, you can't waste money, we've put you through this, and they feel they can't let us down. I want to say to those children, if you have given it your best, do not look at yourself and start thinking dying is an option. No parent wants you dead. Yes, they are pushing you because they want the best for you, but not because you are nothing if you don't achieve. So all in all, I just want to say, Oguti, I know sometimes we push to motivate, but sometimes we need to know when to pull back. And I want to say to the children, start speaking up. Start saying something. Start saying something to a friend. Start writing a journal. Start doing something for yourself. Don't expect people to always rescue you. Sometimes all you have to rescue is yourself, no one else. So, I mean, I can go on the whole day with this because I'm very passionate about it, but I just want to say it's a lot because there's a lot. I mean, even now, as I speak of spirituality as well, there's a lot of children that are seen to be going into depression because they don't understand themselves. They are confused sexually. They don't know their sexuality. They don't know spiritually if they don't know whether they're born again Christians. It's just so confusing. There's a lot of confusion in this world. I just want to breathe. Can we just breathe in 2020 and be? Breathe and be and do your best. That's the end.
I love you. You're awesome. Penuel?
Thank you. I'd like to rehash what Nhlanhla said because it's that beautiful and it's that powerful. She spoke about having empathy, trying to put yourself in another person's shoes, whether it's a waiter or a chef, and understand that this person's dealing with a lot of people, not just you. Have empathy and try to be understanding. She spoke about being intentional. Be intentional. Thank you so much for your support. Please enjoy this drink. I hope you're having a good day. Please remember to be intentional, whether you're parenting, whether you're trying something in your life. And I think it even ties in with trying to do your best. Don't compare to other people. Compare to yourself. You know your abilities. You know where your limits are. You know where your weaknesses are. You know what you need to work on. Some people were born naturally thin. Some people were born naturally fast. Some people were born with the ability to cram stuff. If you're not that person, it's fine. You know what you were born with. Work with that. The stuff that you feel you're a bit weak on, work on that. You're only competing with yourself to become a better version of yourself. And I think, again, this ties into just do your best. My family and I have started this thing in the last couple of months where luckily we don't get stuck in cars for 20 hours. But we've started taking walks, 1 hour walks. We leave our phones behind. In that walk, we get to exercise. We do it in nature, so we get fresh air. And then we get to chat, and we share ideas and we speak about each other. It becomes almost a therapy session of sorts. The second thing, because your question was, how do we help parents? And I guess how do we help everyone else is we are fighting systems. A lot of good people, unfortunately, never get to win because systems are what define how human beings behave. So those of us with good intentions need to begin looking at systems. And systems is not something crazy. Systems is writing a book. If you're Christian, your system begins with the Bible, the Torah, the Quran, if you're maybe Jewish or Muslim, for example. Write more books. I've written 13 books, so someone can use that. If you can raise money, create institutions, whether it's institutions that are teaching kids how to plant food, how to fix cars, how to build systems, even in your home. As much as you want to motivate your kids, as much as you want to shout at them every day, a system is a piece of paper with their chores for the day. Even when you're not there, even when you're feeling low, they know that piece of paper tells them what they need to be doing, whether it's chores or exercising or reading a book, etc. And once the systems are better, even on the worst day, you'll be like, okay, I know I have to brush my teeth. I know I have to part, because that's a system. So work on the systems as far as possible. We need to begin looking into ways to slightly unplug from money, because unfortunately money is controlled by certain people with agendas, and money is a very big trigger for people with anxiety and depression and those kind of things. We need to get fresh air. It was very disturbing even under lockdown that a lot of people were not getting fresh air, they were not getting sunlight. Very, very vital for the human body and mind to just be healthy, you know. And on top of this thing of social distancing means we're not hugging, we're not feeling each other, you know, we're not touching. So there's a lot of things we need to begin looking back at, because sometimes to move forward we need to look back sometimes. I mean, we're talking organic and herbal things we've always been doing, green things we've always been doing. So some of the solutions that we're looking for. And then the last thing in systems is I know that a lot of people are depressed, anxious and suicidal because there's this imaginary perfect human being that has been created and that has been sold out there through the television, through whatever. And when kids feel like I didn't get 90%, I'm not a star athlete, I'm not a doctor, their self-esteem gets absolutely demolished, you know, and they feel like clearly I've failed in life. But that's wrong, because someone brought that onto you and that's not who you are. There's that cliche of if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, you know, it'll always feel that it's stupid. And that's literally what it is. We are not the same. But unfortunately, in the money world, if you don't have money, you are nobody, you know. And in this aesthetic world, if you're not the light-skinned, big bum, you're ugly. And that's wrong. That's not how the world works. Again, we need to get louder. And I appreciate this platform because I believe it is doing exactly that. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate you. And I don't want to stop. We need to bring a part 2. Actually, Penuel, Nhlanhla, you hold on to this man. I'm giving you permission to do so because he has to come back. We have many topics we want to explore this year. Thank you so much. And of course, to our viewers here, you guys, you're just amazing. And I just want us, as we kick off this year, I actually have these 2 words I created this year. I want to be at peace with everyone. You know, I have this compassion that it's burning inside me. I'm at a point where I want to just understand even the most misunderstood people. I think if we could do that, it will start in the systems we have at home. You know, you had my guess. Let's start by understanding our kids, giving that compassion, you know, that love, that unconditional love. Because a lot of times, even with the clients I see, or even clinically and outside my practice, a lot of times people are feeling inadequate. Yesterday, I saw a young woman, beautiful, but she was terrorized by kids, and she's in her university level. When she was younger, in high school, other kids told her she was ugly. I could not bring any tools to bring this girl to understand how pretty she was. So it's our duty as parents or caregivers to do those affirmations for our kids so that they understand who they are, so that the world does not affirm them. Guys, thank you so much for being here. I love you. And of course, I can't wait to see you again next week. Next week, we're going to kick off with another topic. I don't know it yet. And of course, I'm going to bring back these speakers. You had them. They were awesome. And you guys, you have so many beautiful comments about you here. People loved you. And of course, thank you so much for your time. I can't wait to talk to you again. God bless.
Definitely. We're going to come back. Penuel, we need to
back. You have no choice.
But I want to say before we go, I want to say to the kids, if you fail your degree, you have not failed life. You can always do something else. You can always do something. When you're in your university, check what people said they appreciated about you. When I was busy doing my thesis and wasn't getting finished, I started crocheting. I started selling crochet work, scarves, jerseys. You have YouTube. Do things. You can start baking. You can be baking cakes. You can be innovative. Think of things. You can do this. You are not failing in life. You've just failed a degree, which might not get you a job at the end of the day anyways.
Thank you so much.
Let's do this. Let's start 2020 with a positive and be grateful to be alive.
I know that. I love you, sis. Take care. God bless.
Take care. Bye.